Hello everyone, Blue Star Saber here once again to do another One Piece chapter review. Chapter 1179. The owner Emu Descends. I'll admit I'm a bit late for this one. Well, I was hoping to do it, one day after I did the last review, which seemed to go quite well. Probably helps that I did two major Naosaku streams back to back, which allowed a bit of viewing for my channel. But yeah, anyway, this chapter is basically a follow-up to a previous chapter in which Luffy and Loki battled like Emu, at least the shadowy Emu inside Gunko's body, who then disattached itself, attempted to dummy reverse both Luffy and Loki, but to no effect. Meanwhile, it seems like the Straw Hats and the Giants have been taking care of all the remaining enemies. Chopper using slapping the last of the dummy reverse Giants, if you will, while Robin and Soul find that the library has been completely emptied of all the books, and also the owl that makes things big or small with its powers has disappeared, with them suspecting they've done something with that the owl has done something with the books, and now need to find the owl. Meanwhile, Emu has decided now to leave the Holy Land, which many theorize he's going to Elbaf. To deal with the situation personally, since it seems all the Gods Knights have been taken care of, if you will, at the moment. So this led many people to speculate whether or not Emu was actually going to Elbaf, or was he going to do something else? And, well, given the title of this chapter, it seems to imply that Emu is coming to Elbaf. So, yeah, it looks like we're finally going to get Emu taking direct action himself, probably goaded a little bit by Usopp. So, yeah, we have that, if you will. So, yeah. Anyway, before the chapter begins, I'm just going to give a quick, I'm just going to give my thoughts on this cover, which is Arita Requace, Ace, and Ultima and Yamato leading aboard piglets on a hike down the wetlands. Path by Noyama wants to travel, which arguably it's a nice little double panel thing. Granted, I think some would wish that this was canon, but remember, Tama and Yamato and Ace did not meet these two at the same time, and Yamato and Tama would not meet each other until the raid of Onigashima and its aftermath, if you will. So yeah, I think this is just Oda doing a little nice nod to the two people in Wano that knew Ace. Personally, being Tama and Yamato. So just Oda doing a little nice proof of that friendship of them seeing this cover and just having fun with these boards. And as you can probably tell, Ace looks a bit younger, than he does when he was in the pre-time skip timeline, if you will. So yeah, it's a nice little callback to, I guess, Ace's friendship with these two characters, but arguably it's not really canon. And I do see, even though it is a sort of touching moment, but it does also remind you the tragedy that these two will never get to see Ace again. Anyway, on to the actual chapter. You've got the five elders just confirming that what he said about going to Elbaf and all that stuff in the Sacred Lands, and they're trying to persuade him not to go down there, if you will. And then you got Fergalin coming down, telling them not to be so smug, and secure, and saying, can they really do that can they really remain in the Holy Land, and is it really actually safe? As Garland has entered, as Moxmar's comments on Garland entering, he reveals that apparently that Shamrock has returned to quell the situation they're going with at the moment. But talking about how the lower world's plan to starve them out still continues. And he talks about how dignity and power will not fill their stomachs, and asking what can we do on our own, as it seems like Garland is saying that given the current situation right now, they need to act. And he even brings up the fact that they need to bring right now is the military might to keep the rest of the world under their thumb, basically doubling down on their military, if you will. Let's see. and mentions something about the former Navy headquarters, which has got many people wondering what Garland means by those words, as it's whether it's like, let's see, the old Marine headquarters before in the pre-time skip, or are they talking about former Marines getting involved, such as, Kong and Sengoku? So you got some speculations there. Anyway, they get a Dendemishi call from York, who's complaining to Garling about where all the food is, thinking that she's not really living like a celestial dragon. As we cut to like a power plant in the lava phase of Marijois, where we see York sort of throwing a temper tantrum. Though I can't help but wonder if Oda did a very specific shot there, but let's see which. Shame on him if that is the case, but anyway, let's see. As she's kicking and throwing a tantrum about not getting food, Garling's going to like warned her about the Holy Land going under food shortage, and saying that the one thing that can break the siege is if the Mother Flame, she gets the Mother Flame up and running. So tells York that if you want to live like a celestial dragon, hurry up and provide the energy for them. And she's going like, this wasn't part of the deal, as she's just crying and doesn't really want to work, if you will, with Garland saying that your original the original Vegapunk, rebelled against the world government, if you will, and arguably was one of the rebellious forces that arrayed against us. So saying to York, consider this your way of taking responsibility, much to her dismay, if you will. Oops, I forgot I had an alarm on. Sorry, I'm just going to turn it off. Anyway, Garland continues saying that it's been one disaster another since, let's see, Nika arrived. Wondering if it's either coincidence or fate. Let's see, St. Summers, Betsy tries to say, regardless of that, tries to persuade Imu to not leave Pangaea Castle, saying why not we just send the Navy headquarters admirals to like Elbaf, with Nesjoro pointing out that we've got Neon Ranger saying it's kind of quick for York to have gotten a setup in Meriduria's, right? 2 days sail from Elbaf for the Straw Hats and weeks back to the Holy Land. I wonder if that floating weapon helped. Probably, though. Arguably, I think Marine ships are known to be a bit faster than your standard pirate ships. And he goes like, don't mind my messages. Just commenting, thanks for the stream. Okay, fair enough. Thank you for listening to the stream. Hopefully you stick around, if you will. But yeah, anyway, where was I going? Yes, Summers suggesting the Navy admirals, but there's Juro saying that given the number of situations we're dealing with right now, they can't really send the admirals. And this is where Rockery says then we should go to the field again instead. But Imu ends up saying this is no longer a coincidence, Rockery, saying that arrogance, sloth, detachment, and pride cast away these things at once. As Imu says, all is preordained, as we get a sort of a hold on, let me just find it. We get a sort of montage of flashbacks, if you will. So get a montage of flashbacks. We're starting with Rock saying he will be back, when he was talking to Imu. Roger with his announced, let's see how the whole world will have to find the One Piece. Apparently, Imu being informed that, Neptune had a daughter, indicating that Imu does know that Shirahoshi, indicating more further that Imu does know that Shirahoshi is likely the ancient weapon Poseidon. A young Shanks emphasized to reveal that they stole the devil fruit, implying to be of course, the Gum Gum no Mi, or aka the Nika fruit. Harold is basically shown to questioning what is an Elbaf, given the fact that Harold was killed by Loki, and that sort of spooked Imu from ever sending anyone else to go to Elbaf to deal with it. And then we got like a clip of Loki here actually saying that someone informing, I assume Emu, saying that we found out who the pirate captain is in the mists, and we're feeling that it's Loki, Howard's son. And apparently we get like a let's see, Whitebeard's when Whitebeard was dying, about how Whitebeard protected him, and saying, who is it? Monkey D. Luffy, implying that Emu's being informed that Whitebeard protected this pirate called Monkey D. Luffy. And we then get a shot of Blackbeard where Emu's asking who is that, as it seems like someone's informing him that's Marshall D. Teach. Then cutting to sort of like Cobra saying Nefertari D. Lily, and Emu seemingly slicing up wanted posters of Luffy and Blackbeard, thinking now starting to see the two as Joe Boy and Davy Jones, thinking how they still continue to torment Mu, as we see more of a picture of Shirahoshi now as well, and Emu's words of desiring Phoebe, with Emu just entering like one of those ritual circles, saying it all began long before this, as they're going like, great Mu, with let's see, Emu saying that he leaves the Holy Land for the elders to deal with, but with the elders saying about Emu, in the lower world you are, but Garland interrupts them saying, we do not have the right to stop the Great One, with Mars saying, but still, and Top Monkey saying, if the great Emu leaves this castle, with Nurse Joe saying, no need to say it, we all know. Let's see, with Summers seemingly reluctant saying, it is by the Great One's design, saying us none of us can prevent, but it seems they've hung up, as Emu has disappeared from the circle and the Holy Land, as we're seeing a bit of the burnt remains from like something that happened earlier on that got Emu to act in Elbaf in the first place. Anyway, we cut to like Elbaf, if you will, and hold on. Yeah, we cut to Elbaf, and let me just scroll down a bit. Hold on, let me just. Damn it. Remove. There we go. I hate complications like this. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. Elbaf New World, where a giant, I believe, which is likely Gunko, calling out Hajuden and Stanson in the western village of the Sun World, were saying that she's found one of the demons that was trying to put himself back together, but which is, of course, Saint Summers, and him cursing this again, with Hajuden shocked that the guy is still alive, with Susan trying to show how it gets like Emu is acting like okay, we've got a comment saying here, if the great Emu leaves the castle, Walker is saying something but got off. Yeah. Arguably implying that there seems to be some sort of like let's see, problem if Emu leaves. Either they get depowered or Emu is more vulnerable when he leaves the Holy Land, if you will. So let's see, which will be a bit interesting to talk about a bit more later, but yeah. But anyway, Gunko's talking about how, look, this magnet about, let's see, Summers, trying to show how the closer he gets, the more he attaches like a magnet. But talks about how it's scary like this, but Summers goes like, not as scary as Gerd is, which, to be fair, she is a giant. But anyway, Summers goes like, you said your name was Gerd, saying that she remembered that name, and says, watch yourself, because you will make sure to personally make sure she suffers a miserable death, going on a rant about that. And then you got Goldblood poking out, you should look at this too, showing like the metal heart before. And Zoro takes a look, and they realize it's a steel heart, with Zoro like wondering like, if we used to somehow destroy that, does that mean they won't come back to normal? And given Summer's reaction here, it seems Zoro is spot on the mark, if you will. Anyway, we then cut to like Sanji's group in the Walrus School, if you will. As Frankie's trying to take care of Usopp and Brook and hanging there, wondering that since their bones are broken, maybe he should like cyberize them, much to their shock and horror, if you will, about the idea of becoming cyborgs. Or at least, rather, they don't really want to become cyborgs. But anyway, Jimbo's asking where Chopper is. You've got Killingham going all about how I'm going to personally remember your name, Sanji, for revenge. Let's see. And now demanding that Sanji say his name, but Sanji is implying that he's forgotten. Either he is literally forgotten or just mocking Killingham, if you will. So you've got that. Meanwhile, we have Gunko frozen in the ice, though it seems to implying it's starting to break, if you will. Anyway, we cut to like let's see, with Loki asking now inside the school, asking why it's frozen, at least just outside it, with let's see, Lilith saying it's not art, it's merely sapped all the heat energy. But Loki's complaining that the school's food is now frozen inside, it doesn't even taste good. With Luffy saying gotta give some to Usopp and Brook. With Loki telling Luffy, not until you we've got Neon Ranger doing a comment was like, say my name like what? And say my name like Walter White is in Breaking Bad. Okay, fair enough. I've never seen Breaking Bad, but I'll take your word for it. But anyway, well, I was like, oh yes. Let's see, Loki telling Luffy to eat up the food, with him saying, asking, let's see, Loki about the bad guy you froze. Is she dead? With him saying it's a move called Freeze Flash, saying it won't be fatal, but only like Ragnar, if you will. Let's see, the squirrel can unfreeze it, so it'll melt the ice. So telling Luffy, do not worry, that Gunko's not going anywhere. Meanwhile, Nami is trying to like put out more fires, if you will, with Zeus. And they send something black gritty energy or smoke, if you will, comes down from the heavens. Giants are shocked, saying, "Ain't that just black smoke?" As more comes on, they'll like look at the sky, and we end up seeing a giant magic circle, if you will. Hold on, let me just get down. There we go. Hold on. I forgot I need to remove the image. Remove. Here we go. Add to stage. There we go. Right, so we've got a giant sort of like magic circle crossing over the castle itself, a large part of like the Elbaf, with Nami saying, "Everyone come quick," with Frankie and Sanji wondering what all the rubble is, and Sanji saying that, "Don't worry, Nami, I'll be with you," sort of doing his usual simping behavior, if you will. Giants are all shocked by the thing, and then get even more shocked as hold on. Let's see. Oops, I went a bit too far back. The houses and the trees come to life, singing all that stuff. You see the kids running out. Let's see, with the giants wondering if they're dreaming. Shocked by that the forest is coming to life, wondering if this is someone's devil fruit powers. As more black smoke forms around a circle around all of Branch 8, if you will. And then a black smoke that looks like lightning and Conqueror's Haki comes crashing down to like Howard's castle, if you will. And all the kids get knocked out by the Conqueror's Haki as the rest of the giants all like panicking and trying to hurry to the castle. With Zoro coming that this is the color of the Supreme King, and Loki saying, "Was that from the castle?" Saying it's the same Haki from before. As Luffy, still in his sort of elderly, worn-out Nika form, if you will, or after facts of Nika, is looking on. Bad time for him not to fully recover yet. And we get inside the castle, and Emu is apparently coughing up blood, or huffing and puffing, but begins now. Granted, we don't know why he is. It could be something like a chat teleporting here or something, or it might be he's not allowed to touch land, or maybe it's he's more damaged from like the stuff Luffy and Loki did, or it could be possible that the transformation that Emu's about to do is going to hurt really bad. So, but yeah, but as we see Emu starting to sprout wings from its back, destroying the castle a bit with Elder Jaro, Dory and Brody wondering who's that. As more of the castles are sort of like panicking, those castle things are singing. You got Somerson killing them, shocked that the Great One is coming here in person. As someone notices, like someone's up there on top of the castle. Let's see, and this is like arguably a very big castle, so the figure is probably a lot more bigger than we are expecting, or at least what it looks like. But and of course, it's revealed to be none other than Emu's form, as the narration goes, like creator of the world government, one of the first 20 powers, the devil's fruit, and the narration box of king of the world, Saint Naroma Emu, as we see Emu in this sort of like devil form, if you will, black circle smokes with some eyes, devil's tail, some sort of bladed weapon, if you will, sort of belt that you kind of see like Albert Off Giants wore, but markings with like eyes on his hand and all that stuff, and seeming like having like an eyes that look like the Rinnegan. But yeah, but Emu bleeding from like arguably perhaps what's happening earlier before, but nevertheless, Emu seems to have fulfilled his devil fruit form, ending this chapter on a high note, if you will. So anyway, with that, let's see, all said and done. Time for my overall thoughts of the chapter. Let's see. Ooh, we've got another comment saying Neon Ranger. I like the 3 skulls under Emu. Like Oars had 3 skulls on his belt, and Blackbeard had 3 skulls. Yeah, arguably true. I wonder if that means there's going to be some sort of connection, because let's see, some think that Emu's horns might look like that of an ancient giant, or something like that. Granted, some theorize with Blackbeard, the 3 skulls emphasize that he's going to end up getting 3 devil fruit powers, one for Logia, one for Paramecia, and one for Zoan, which arguably could be Emu's if he's going to steal from Emu down the line, but we just have to wait and see. But yeah. Anyway, let's see. I guess I suppose I should go to my overall thoughts. First of all, I do like how you've got like the 5 elders trying to persuade, at least the standard 4 that think a lot alike, trying to persuade Emu not to go to the lower world, if you will. Let's see, and we've got a comment from Neon Ranger, 100% agree, Blackbeard will steal Emu's fruit. I'll get to that in a bit, but yeah. But yeah, we've got like the 5 elders trying to persuade their best to prevent Emu from leaving the Holy Land, if you will. Let's see, showing some concern, which, as I think Neon Ranger says, that let's see, implying that if like Emu leaves, it'll be it'll have some sort of effect on him. But of course, we don't get that the full details, as whenever someone tries to go into it, they get interrupted. But nevertheless, it seems to imply that Emu can't really leave the Holy Land without it being vulnerable in some way, or at least Emu himself being invulnerable. We don't know whether or not the castle itself or Emu himself leaving is a bad idea. With Emu not being there is a bad idea. But yeah. But I do like how Garling seems to be in a bit of a disagreement to the others and all that stuff, seemingly telling them how they need to act, if you will. Or like, this is what the Great One commands, we must obey. Perhaps showing perhaps one of the other reasons why perhaps Emu has decided to promote Garling is the fact that he brings new ideas to the table. And you might feel like that the others are either too, I don't know, yesy men, if you will, or too kiss ups, if you will, or too weak, or figured, okay, we need to have Garland here. But nevertheless, it is nice to now see the new five elders coming together, discussing things, as we saw throughout the series. The other five, the first group of five elders, when you had Saint Saturn instead of Garling in, you sort of had like them always talking about things going on, but now you've got like since the last arc revealed that Garling was going to play Saint Saturn. Let's see, we haven't really seen. Let's see, meaning that he's now part of the group, or at least now a new important figure amongst them. But we haven't really seen like the old group sort of like we haven't really seen this new group interact and see what their dynamic is. As even in the Elbaf flashback, since it's like covering God Valley and all the other stuff related to Elbaf at the time. Let's see, you got to see the last of the old, original five elders, if you will. And Garling at best you see as a holy knight. But now here, we're finally at the present, and we're finally got a present meeting of the elders, seeing what, Garling is going to do that's different to them. And it seems like Garling's a bit more critical of the elders for like perhaps their complacency, if you will, or like their leadership, since the Holy Land got caught on fire. His son had to deal with it, which I'm going to get to in a bit. And let's see, and saying that stop disagreeing with the Great One. It is what he commands. So it's interesting because you used to see the elders all agree on something, but now with Garling added, there's someone that is disagreeing them sometimes in favor of what the Great One wants, even when the others think that it's not a good idea for the Great One to do what he's about to do. So, yeah. But anyway, now we still don't know who exactly caused a bit of the Holy Land to be set on fire and blaze that got Emu to come down here. Some people are still theorizing it's the Blackbeard Pirates or the Revolutionary Army, depending on who you ask. But I think now I'm seeing some people think that some of the other world nobles start to riot and cause a bit of fire. But nevertheless, Shamrock appears to have taken care of the situation, or at least made it much more manageable at the very least. So I suppose that's an upscale for a character that was just introduced in the arc, only to be taken away nearly immediately. So, but nevertheless, should be expected. He's Shank's evil twin brother, so arguably he should be arguably as strong, or if not stronger than Shanks, but who knows? We have to wait and see on that regard when it comes to like let's see, Shamrock, whether or not we're going to get a Shanks versus Shamrock fight. Let's see, I don't know, but yeah. But nevertheless, I do like how let me just get back to the beginning of the chapter. But I do like how we've got a bit of an update on York, and as expected, given the siege of of the Holy Land right now, food supplies and all that stuff, she isn't getting the lifestyle that she wanted. She betrayed her fellow Vegapunks, even attempting to kill them, if you will. All that just because she wanted to become a celestial dragon. But turns out, given the fact that she's more valuable for her scientific knowledge and use of Mother Flame and all that, she's not, and given the fact that the Holy Land's under the Sage, she can't really have that lifestyle. So she's being put to work, if you will, and she's complaining like a spoiled teenage girl, if you will, which, to be fair, I think she's supposed to be. But I do like how Garling's like saying that it cannot be helped with the shortage. You need to get the Mother Flame back on. Also, technically we're in this mess partly because your original Vegapunk rebelled against us, so take some responsibility for him. And so York's not really having it, which led to many who wonder that perhaps York will down the line decide to betray the world government and maybe partner up with someone like Blackbeard. But we'll have to wait and see in that regard. Anyway, let's see, we got Neon Ranger saying, for your information, around chapter 1085, Ivanka said that the Ray of Earth is going to siege the Holy Land. And in chapter 1126, Leaflet's Lafayette said that the Reeves are sieging the Holy Land currently. Then Blackbeard said, get ready. Yeah, I remember that. Which seems to imply that Blackbeard is either going to do a move that disrupts the Revolutionary Army or is going to take advantage of the chaos they do. So it could be that Blackbeard attacked the Holy Land, but it could be that also the Revolutionaries have gone a bit more bolder and started to do the attacking. But nevertheless, it's clear that these two that Blackbeard at the very least is probably somewhat involved, but also the Revolutionary Army. The only question is we going to see what it's going to be about? Since we do know that there's been some bit of rivalry between the two factions, particularly when it involves the Blackbeard pirates, especially with Dressrosa. Let's see, with Neon Ranger saying Blackbeard is the master of chaos. He will do something within the Rev Sage. Arguably, he probably will because, well, he's planning to become an official king recognized by the world government. And it's one of the reasons they kidnapped Kobe and later got Garp as a sort of bargaining chip to help start a dialogue, if you will. But let's see. So likely, if I had to guess, Blackbeard's likely to succeed in this, even if only temporary, and then that really starts to enact his real plans, which we don't know what it is yet. But yeah. But I do like but I wouldn't be surprised that with York being treated like doing more work than what she had to do under Vegapunk, I wonder if she might eventually turn on the Five Elders and the world government. Let's see, especially if Blackbeard has a better offer, but if not, Blackbeard will do something to persuade her to join sides, or she's stuck with her guns and now has to deal with the consequences and maybe regret down the line not realizing that it's already too late. But yeah. Oh, we've got another comment here saying Blackbeard. No, it's the same one, but yeah. So we've got that at the very least. But I do like how Emu's done a bit of a montage, if you will, of hold on, let me just sort out the images. Here we go. All right, let me just change back. But I do like how Emu is thinking about all the events that began with Rot, Roger, and all that stuff, learning about connecting all the dots and pieces and realizing that this was always inevitable and sign up. And it's interesting that we also see this montage how he learned that Shirahoshi was born, that Neptune stared a daughter, which makes him think, okay, she's the next incarnation of Poseidon. So implying that Emu knows that a mermaid princess can only control the Sea Kings. So yeah, so this might explain why he's taking such a bit of a top stab the knife in her photo during the lovely, if you will. But yeah, but I do like how enough. Pardon me, hiccups, I guess. Another thing that this chapter does is interesting show that Emu did not quite maybe realize who Monkey D. Luffy and Marshall D. Teach are when Shanks stole the fruit, let's see, for the Gum Gum, and then of course Whitebeard, let's see, trying to protect Luffy. So it's like Emu seemingly not paid too much attention to both Blackbeard and Luffy at one point. And now as they're starting to rise in power, he's starting to realize that, okay, these two are the next Nico and Joy Boy. They need to be taken care of, if you will. So it's like, okay, these two need to be like taken care of, if you will. But at the same time, also thinking about, let's see, Lily and how he wants Vivi, if you will, which shows that he's still having the desire to go after, let's see, Vivi and make her the next Lily, if you will. So, but yeah. But anyway, I do like how it's interesting that the five elders try to persuade Emu of like saying, let's bring in the admirals, which I think it's plural admirals as an S, as I'm pretty certain one admiral would not be enough to quench Elbaf. Not if you not because only you have to deal with all those giants, but the fact that you also have to deal with both Loki and Luffy and a few other characters that are at least probably either high tier Yonko commander or at least maybe together, maybe admiral level. But yeah, so we do have that. Hold on a second. I like how Emu is just like and then later the five elders are sort of suggesting that they go down themselves, but Emu's telling them not to swallow their pride, if you will, and detachments and stuff like that. Let's see, telling them that, it's all been preordained, but yeah. But I will admit, it probably would make more sense for the five elders to go down there instead of the admirals, because it seems like the admirals, I don't think, would stand a chance against, say, Loki. The five elders might be better, but no, it seems like Emu's decided, no, this is preordained. Joe Boy probably set this up. I need to now deal with it. And that's why Emu's probably going, if I had to guess, thinking all the offense assigned to, like, Emu. I like how he's sort of like connecting the dots together, if you will. But yeah. Anyway, it's also interesting how we've now seemingly found a sort of like weakness in the crack, as I do like how Gerd picked up Somers and trying to comment about how he's acting like a magnet for getting scared, but Somers is saying, "You want to talk?" Let's see. Then of course, Somers being noble, does a sort of like tangent rant. Let's see, against them good, if you will. But let's see, the giant starts to notice the metal heart. I like how Zoro says, maybe we should destroy it to get rid of means Saint Somers. And given Somers' reaction, it seems Zoro might have been spot on. Though whether or not they end up destroying that, let's see, whether or not they where was I? Sorry. Lost my train of thought there. Let's see. It seems that we finally got a weakness to the God's Knights, which appears to be a heart, which kind of reminds me of I think what was originally supposed to be the weakness of the Valkyrie, of that for Quincy, but nevertheless, it seems Oda's decided that one weakness for the Holy Knights is to have these metal hearts, which seemingly keeps them alive and helps them regenerate. But if it's destroyed, they disappear. I'm not sure that's going to be the case with the five elders, but at the very least, it seems to be with the more regular troops of the world government. But yeah, if you will. So yeah. I forgot my train of thought for a second. Blimey, it's starting to get late, but yeah. But I do like how, this weakness, Zoro seems to have figured out, and Somers' reaction's like, oh crud, I'm dead now. Which I think, regardless of whether or not Zoro cuts that heart and you die, and so I think Emu would kill Somers for incompetence, but that doesn't seem to be the case right now. So, but given his reaction, we do seem to have a weakness, and it seems to be metal heart, which could possibly give a reason for Kid to come back, which we'll have to wait and see if Oda's going to go that route. I'm using his powers to draw in the hearts of the Holy Knights, but who knows? Perhaps Zoro will actually stab or destroy it, or someone else will, and Somers finally dies. But yeah, but I do like how Sanji, let's see, Stu got in like killing him tied up. He's vowing vengeance, but it's like Sanji doesn't even want to care to lower but remember the name. Gunko, of course, still frozen in ice, and we learned from Loki when he's eating frozen food with Luffy that you see the ice that she's in cannot break and all that stuff, and only Loki's squirrel hammer can actually undo it, implying that she's still conscious in there, assuring Luffy that let's see the character's not dead, which hey, but yeah, Gunko's currently frozen solid, seemingly asleep right now. Now, we got a comment from Neon Ranger saying, agreed. I hope Kid comes back. Maybe the Giants fished him out of the water. You know, I think Mr. Morge did do a video about Kid doing that and implying that that might happen. Granted, that might have been when Elbaf was an arc that was ongoing a bit earlier stages. Granted, it could still happen, but probably not in this current Elbaf arc and more of its aftermath. I do believe Oda has something, for Kid. It could be that these metal hearts are the thing that is going to be something that only Kid can do, which is draw them away from like the Guards Knights when they've been defeated, remove their hearts, and then allow who's ever been fighting them to destroy them, or he destroys them himself, since he should be a Conqueror's Haki user. But we'll have to wait and see. But nevertheless, Kid is arguably, it is hopefully room for Kid to do. But yeah. But speaking of Holy Knights, we've got Gunko here still sort of like frozen. And of course, apparently, let's see, thanks to being frozen by Ragnia or Mjolnir, if you will, Gunko cannot escape, though granted, the way this is drawn implies that some of the ice might crack. So I'm not sure if this is a result of Imu's power or something else. But there's clearly some still signs for like Gunko and Usopp to deal with. It's interesting since, let's see, everyone thought that killing him, Saint Thomas would end up being an opponent for Sanji, given their sort of themes of love, if you will. Sanji being a more positive, some of them are more negative and cruel, if you will. Let's see, so everyone thought he would fight that, and then Usopp would fight killing him, because he seems to be a bit of a marksman with the arrows and all that. And Zoro would fight the Domiverse Giants, which arguably did happen, but figured that Doran Broggy would be the lead of that, but that turned out not to be the case. Sanji and his group of Straw Hats ended up fighting, killing him, and Gunko being, possessed by Imu. We figured at least Brock might do something to free her from that control, but it seems like she's starting to gain some control herself. Though granted, with Imu arriving, that might put more dominance towards her. I do wonder if that will mean that Brock will have to set up to deal with her. Granted, Usopp is also injured, so who knows? Maybe the two of them can work together against, let's see, Gunko, who is struggling to break free of control at the time. Which would be an interesting team up to have Usopp and Brook together. I do like Frankie's comment about should I make them into cyborgs since they're being so injured. So, but yeah, let's see. So it's like now, granted, I don't think Brook or Usopp are going to be cybernet become cyborgs. Even if Usopp might find that stuff cool, I doubt he wants to go through such a procedure. But nevertheless, I do think that, let's see, we still got something with Brook and Gunko that needs to be addressed. Let's see whether or not Oda has the time to do that. We'll have to wait and see, but I assume he's going to at least do at least one chapter, maybe half a chapter, covering whichever Brook's and Gunko's relationship was and how it soured, if you will. But yeah, nevertheless, I do like how Loki complains about all the food in the library being frozen, but still eats it regardless, and trying Luffy to eat it, as he's still trying to show concern for his friends about not eating. But nevertheless, I do like how Loki's saying, eat up so they can get ready, which he's probably wishing that Luffy did do that, because, of course, Imu arrives. So, yeah. But I do like how, let's see, let me just... let me just remove this. I do like how we get when the sort of like Emu is coming to the Holy Land, we get a bit of a scale of like the summoning ritual for him being much bigger than a castle that's designed for ancient giants and giants alike. So it's like this is a much more huge. This is much bigger than like whole of Branch 8. So it's like it's map an entire country in the world of One Piece. So yeah, luckily for the citizens of Elbaf, it's not. Let's see, the ancient weapon the world government likely has. But yeah, I do like the sort of scale of about it, and the fact that Emu seems to have a bit of a upgraded darker ability that Big Mom's souls of like, but this time, not rather than collecting souls, Emu seems to make able to immediately turn trees and houses into demonic monsters, and I do like seeing that, if you will. So yeah, I do like that sort of stage being set. But yeah, I even like how Killingham and Solmus are basically reacting to the fact that holy moly, the Great One is here. But yeah, other than that, I do like minor details of Nami trying to put out fires, giants reacting to Emu arriving, kids being knocked out by Conqueror's Haki as they should. So yeah, with Luffy and Loki talking and realizing that this is the same Haki from before, if you will. But yeah. But arguably the highlight is that after a couple of years now, the Emu, it's just been the Shillerette figure that some people now to see that maybe that might just be Emu's real form. No, turns out Emu has another form, and that is, of course, apparently the Devil Fruit. Let's see, or the Devil Fruit, as Loki's form looks somewhat of a mix of different interpretations of what the devil is like in different cultures, if you will, but nevertheless got the standard Ervil's tail, the awakened smoke around Emu's body, even though most of that seems to be eyes, if you will, more movable black tail, all that kind of stuff, as well as like markings on his hands, some of them being eyes that look like Rinnegan, and of course white hair. So yeah, arguably we finally get Emu and Emu's Fritzy appearance, and arguably looks quite terrifying as a sort of devil-like figure. So but yeah, my overall thoughts on this part. Let's see. I will admit, I like the design. I think it looks badass. I think it's like, it shrieks of terror. And arguably, Emu's arrival has arguably done what this arc needed, is to bring back tension a bit. The good guys have been having it easy, so easy, in fact, we keep talking about it. But let's see, arguably, Oda wanted them to make them feel that way, so that when Emu arrives personally, let's see, they'd be more freaked out and realize that, oh god, this is much more dangerous than we thought. But yeah, so you've got that. Now, but yeah, but also, let's see, many people are now starting to think that Emu might actually be the final antagonist. Again, not Blackbeard, if you will, but since Emu's basically the devil himself and probably seems to be the devil himself and needs to be defeated, which I suppose he's not the actual devil, but we now finally got a confirmation that his fruit is devil fruit, or the devil fruit, implying that it might be the first. Let's see, the abilities might be that of the first one, but might also be a way to try and persuade. Let's see, something like that you would normally think of in the Orville, but let's see, I'm getting ahead of myself there. I'm losing track of the, let's see, I'm rambling on about a bit there, but about Seth MacFarlane's show now, but anyway, but yeah, but it is interesting how Emu's form and skin form has like, or so many bit of debates. Some starting to wonder if like the sort of darker skin panels for like his features, if you will, are making him wondering if he's perhaps an Lunarian, or let's see, or maybe a bit of an ancient giant, given the fact of the horns. But if I had to guess, this is just the ability. This is the form and abilities of Emu when using the Devil Fruit's power. Whether or not that is the case with other users, who knows? We have to wait and see if Blackbeard does end up stealing the fruit. But at the moment, Emu's looking quite a lot like the final boss, if you will, the Dark Lord that has reigned for centuries that needs to be defeated, and now descending on the lower realm to try and do that. Now, granted, whether or not Emu becomes the final antagonist, I think there's a lot of potential, regardless if he's like main antagonist or the second main antagonist that gets replaced by Blackbeard, who finally takes revenge, if you will. So, but yeah. But given the fact that the tone of the skin color has been up for debate a bit, some have wondered if perhaps, given the white hair and stuff, is Emu is Lunarian or not. Though some have theorized that it could just more be just what the the Mocklans fear the most. But I'm just thinking of the awful. But in One Piece terms, Emu's form is what people seem to believe what the devil actually looks like, and as a result, has caused a bit of fear for the Union that they might be overusing that weapon a bit. But yeah, because it's so technically a prototype. But yeah, anyway, but yeah. Now, it could just be that this is just the skin color and form that due to like Emu having the devil's fruit, but just turn into this and is probably not as dark skinned as some people think, or he is and is of course being forced to do about villain's deeds, if you will. But anyway, but yeah. Arguably, Emu's arrival has definitely, and full form has definitely got One Piece fans talking. I will admit, I did not avoid spoilers because I was like, what the heck's going on? And it's like, holy crud, Emu has finally arrived and he's making moves and all that stuff. So, yeah. Now, arguably, Emu has built some hype and add some tension now. Granted, he's about to probably clash once again with like the Straw Hats, Giants of Elbaf, Loki, and Harold, and Luffy. I mean, well, Loki and Luffy, I guess. So, but yeah, but depending on how Emu does well against, I guess, the Straw Hats and Loki, may determine whether or not he's the final boss, or he's the final boss, or whether or not down the line someone needs to replace Emu, which of course could be the Blackbeard Pirates, but we'll have to wait and see. Ooh. Overall, I think for this chapter, I think I'll give it a 10 out of 10. I do like how we got the sort of new dynamic of the five elders, Garling being a bit more disagreeable with them, but also more agreeing with Emu than the others when they protest and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I do like how Emu is like the five elders debating what to do and all that stuff, and Emu's like going there thinking how it's all being determined, montaging of all the events that he thinks deemed significant, particularly learning that he only just found out who Monkey D. Luffy is, and Blackbeard was a descendant of David E. Jones. So it seems like he's not the quickest to like realize the stuff, but I guess it goes to show perhaps the world government has been in such complacency for so long that pirates popping out and they no longer can control that complacency. So yeah. So arguably seeing the stuff with the five elders, like I said, the idea that the metal heart could be the weakness to kill the Guards Knight, Sanji mocking his Guards Knight, if you will, in Emu arriving, causing abilities similar to Big Mom, and then of course finally getting to see what Emu's form looks like. Is he a Lunarian that once ruled up in the heavens and then betrayed the others? Or perhaps this is just the tonal form of like what Emu's devil fruit color might be actually like. So yeah, who knows? But yeah, but arguably a very good design and arguably a character that needed to bring back tension to the arc. And who knows? This arc. We might soon learn whether or not Emu's going to be the final antagonist or Blackbeard. But yeah, either way, it's a very good chapter. I think it's one of the best chapters in a while. So yeah. Let's see. Anyway, Neon Ranger, thank you for your comments. I hope you they were very helpful and all that stuff. I do like how you brought some topics up, and hopefully I'll be able to answer them to the best of my abilities to your liking. But I hope everyone else who ends up listening to the stream enjoyed what I had to say, especially about Emu, particularly being like possibly one of the final antagonists. Let's see. We'll have to wait and see whether or not Elbaf concludes in a way that will emphasize that, or he will either get replaced by Blackbeard. We'll have to. Let's see. We'll have to find out down the line. But for now, I am Blue Star Saber signing off. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed what this had to say, and goodbye.